Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Clements here from Maui, Hawaii, United States of America, August 4, 2021. Today is the 31st talk in the Maui series. A couple of announcements, if I may, before I dive into 10 ways of navigating complexity. Hope this finds you well, wherever you may be. Had a beautiful conversation. Many of you tuned in to my guest last Sunday, Mr. Stephen M. Shore, the herbalist, plant medicine savant, psychic intuitive, and we had a beautiful, compelling conversation, such that I'm proud to announce that we will continue with part 2 this upcoming Sunday, August 8th, 9:30 a.m. here from Hawaii. May I encourage you to encourage your friends, a delightful opportunity to dive more deeply in a more nuanced way into the topic at hand today, the issues of health, the vaccination, the virus, revolution, resistance, totalitarian structures, groupthink, very deep dive into therapeutics, herbs, extracts, how we can protect ourselves and enhance our mental, physical, spiritual well-being. So Sunday at 9:30 a.m. here from Hawaii, part 2, with my guest, Mr. Stephen M. Shore, in another dialogue about the role of herbs and extracts and plants and mental and physical health in a time of COVID and all the other things that are coming down. So today's talk, 10 ways to navigate complexity. I wrote them down quite spontaneously. I'm sure there's more. They're all interwoven, and I will extemporaneously, in my own normal style, dive into them, interweave them, and hopefully there's value in them for you to embrace meditatively. I use the word meditatively to point to not a tradition or a method, but the direct experiential embodiment, if you will, of being in context to consciousness through the senses at the confluence of the outer and the inner. Embodied mindful presence with interiority and exteriority at the confluence of the senses with the inner and the outer, navigating complexity. Complexity is an interpretation of the phenomenology that comes through the senses. And we have a Dhamma, spiritual, mindful, yogic opportunity to state the obvious, but to state the obvious is very important. To state the obvious at the senses, to be mindful, I'll speak about that. To be mindful at the senses, that's the place where it happens. Situate our yoga, our meditation, our intelligence, our identity, our power, if you will. The embodied awareness at the sense doors, guarding the ear, the eye, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind door, the sixth sense, from intrusions of emotions, whether it be fear or anxiety or stress, or harm, or fear, or doubt, or restlessness, or invasion, all the ways in which we interpret the phenomena of existence through the senses, and to be right there, delicately yet courageously, vigilantly at the mind door, notice, see, release, or keep. Notice, see, release, or keep. Release toxicities, release dissonant mental states, release greed, release fear, release restlessness, release stress, release anger, release delusion, and embrace the most favorable states of mind that you wish to empower as the basis of your presence. Generosity, love, these are choices that we can make. Generosity, love, compassion. These are mosaics, these are energy fields. These are analogous to colors on the palette of our own conscience and consciousness. And as a meditator, as a yogi, as a Dhamma practitioner, a spiritual artist, we anoint the practice of identifying states of consciousness that we wish, figuratively speaking, we wish to inhabit. That's the life of the meditator. That's the life of the yogi. As I learned it in a monastery in Myanmar, that's the life of a monk. That's the life, I'm not a nun, but that's the life of a bhikkhuni. An individual dedicated, courageously dedicated. Can't say enough about the courage to dedicate ourselves to experiential presence, to enact release of toxic, ignorant, delusional, angry, projected, blame, righteous states of mind, and any way in which we denigrate our own identity through the inversion of those states, self-hatred, self-judgment, self-diminishment, vigilance. How many times I heard in a monastery, the power of courageous vigilance, virya, dedicated resolve to not inhabit negative, toxic states of consciousness. And a dedication to see and feel and associate, evolve, and to create with and through sobhana cetasika, beautiful states of mind. So, welcome aboard today. Thank you. The top 10 list of ways of navigating complexity. Be mindful in the power of positive reflection. Stay embodied as basis of being. Protect your mind. Guard the senses. Point 3. 4. Know how to inspire yourself. Flowers, books, poems, images. 5. See, feel, and know sobhana. My teacher, Mahasi Sayadaw, my preceptor, his monk's name, his bhikkhu's name was U Sobhana. Sobhana refers to a category in the Abhidhamma, Buddhist psychology, known as the beautiful states of mind, beautiful sobhana cetasikas, usobhana. Such a beautiful concept. Identify on the palette of one's own consciousness, sobhana cetasikas. Identify with them. Let them become the basis of our identity, our conscience, root and saturate our dignity in sobhana cetasika. Point 5, to see beauty, to feel beauty, to know beauty as states of consciousness. 6, diet, exercise, and the radiance of this sunball 96 million miles from us here on planet Earth, and this 7-mile high luminosity of photons called light. Light. Natural D3, light, luminosity. We are beings of light, and that light informs cognitive frequencies, waves, particles. The natural nutrient, the power of luminosity. Don't just rely on yoga or meditation or nutritions or supplements alone. We're going to get into that. But the power of being available and to feel in the nakedness without clothing, the luminosity that comes from being in light. as a way to navigate complexity. So, diet, exercise, light, equally, and I won't get too much into it, I would, not to demonize, but to be smart. Have a shake-up conversation with yourself. What do I mean by shake-up? What are you putting into your mind and your body that you know compromises the quality of your heart, your body, your longevity, your love, your relationship with family, father, brother, sister, mother, daughter, son, lover, yourself? Eliminate toxicity. You identify, God, I love the cocaine. I love the nicotine. I love the sleeping pill. I love the antidepressant. I love killing myself in the name of toxicity. I love food. I love intake. I love being unmindful of what I put into my mouth, into my ear, into my nose, into my genitals. I love toxicity, propaganda, misinformation, distortion. Check out your thinking process on the ways in which you denigrate and kill yourself in the name of thinking you need to do this to survive. Mind you, I'm not denigrating nicotine or pharmaceuticals or alcohol or food, or even those meditators who were addicted to being mindful of the in-breath, God damn it, the out-breath. I'm being mindful of that damn out-breath. Yet again, I cannot believe how mindful I am. The toxicity of pride and righteousness. You see it in monasteries. It's not something to satirize alone. But you know what I'm pointing to? Sometimes you do everything perfectly right. You meditate, you do yoga, you swim, you bathe, you snorkel, you make love, you're a tantra teacher, but you still smoke the nicotine. You still do the drug, and it makes you a little bit hardwired to feel bad energy. You want to protect yourself from the vaccination, the toxicity of propaganda, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the world, and totalitarianism. Pause here. This is point number 6 in navigating complexity. What are the ways in which you denigrate interiority? And it's complicated to question the narratives on why we do what we do, knowing what we do we shouldn't do, but we do it anyway, and we often do it in denial, with a form of perverse pleasure in doing and denying. And yet again, although I'm a psychotherapist, I overeat constantly and I hide it. And I'm constantly living in a world of diet, constantly defining my life by what I don't do. I've been in recovery now for 30 years, 3 months, 3 days. I haven't had one sip of alcohol, not one nicotine, not one. It's exhausting. So point 5 is beauty. The best way to overcome toxic inclusions into the body are what I would call positive transformational models. Do things that enhance power, strength, virtue. I never thought in a million years that I would love my life better in the absence of cigarettes, until I began to do things that increased the oxygen in my blood, the quietude in my mind, and all of a sudden I began to smell the nicotine in the cigarette, and I felt a type of revulsion. Conscious revulsion is a great way to question the hold of addictions on our mind and body. Cannot say enough about supplements today. D3, zinc, vitamin C, B vitamin, ingest, take them. 7, a way to navigate complexity. Boundaries. Boundaries are a combination of elegance, power, restraint, determination. they're built over time to go from a strength into a fortress, an impenetrable sense of conscience. How many political prisoners I've interviewed who've spent a year, 2, 5, 10, 20, 21 years behind the iron bar, deprived of medicines and food and love. And yet they built a citadel of mindfully enforced conscience, the boundary that my conscience and my dignity are not yours to take, taking blame and vulnerability off the equation. There are times when you cry. I've been crying the last couple of days, feeling very fragile enough. But the boundary became clear. Say no. The elegant, compassionate, self-loving quality of restraint and, when needed, rejection. Thank you very much. I don't want to do that. Thank you very much. I must depart right now. Taking care of one's own heart garden. Protect oneself. We're vulnerable creatures by nature, vulnerable to mortality, vulnerable to toxicities, vulnerable to misinformation, vulnerable to groupthink. We are embedded in a circumstance beyond our control. To state the obvious, how complex it is to live, even under the best of circumstances with loved ones, to be an honest individual in a tribe of family and friends, it's going to trigger upset, difficulty, judgment, controversy, chaos, complexity. We shouldn't shun those things. We should stand in them, because the cultivation of boundaries is risk-taking, intimate dialogue and conversations. Being more honest strengthens boundaries for me. Being more truthful strengthens dignity for me. Know your boundaries. Know things that you want to do. Know what you can do, how far you can go. I don't want to go very far out into the Hawaiian Ocean here. There are big creatures and there are big waves and there are more insidious currents. The next thing you know, how many people, yet again, Robert Jones from Idaho, dragged under. The swells were only 1 foot high, yet there was a current. Boundaries receives and knows and stores information. Be watchful, be boundaried. Develop a fortress that protects and to support and enhances the beautification of one's own heart mind. Point 8 in the 10 ways to navigate complexity. Quiet. There's something in the quietude of quiet. That deep, deep, deep relaxation, the natural relaxation of complexity. It just passes. It begins to pass through. Discern the ways to support zones and times, locations of one's own quietude, rather than always pressuring ourselves, not always, but at times, to exercise, to diet well, to do our yoga, to meditate. Zones and times and locations of just quietude. It's not necessarily closing the eyes to meditate, although one can do that, and I'll get into that here. But taking time to just abide in the space of time, in the moment, in the body, and listen, to feel, to allow natural expression of being. Sometimes I just drop the agendas of Dhamma practice, being mindful, being present, and just let the natural flow of the accumulation of these qualities of transformational presence to just flow in their own spirit by being not enforcing stillness, but just sitting down on a chair or out on the lawn or on the beach. Sometimes, just even the other day, just rather than getting out of the car quickly, I just sat there and just felt space, time, body, quietude. Number 9 is meditation and yoga, 2 together for me. And I cannot say enough about the power of a disciplined, I would call it, I'm always reluctant to use the word practice, but I'll use it. A meditation practice. I eat, I drink, I don't practice eating. But meditation should be, I feel, for me at least, as integral as bathing and showering and preparing food and eating food and resting and sleeping. Meditation as natural, integral to the day. And what I'm pointing to here isn't just an all posture mindful presence. Although standing, sitting, walking, lying down, reaching, turning. Point 2, stay embodied. Staying within the rhythm of a quiet, mindful, resilient, boundaried beauty. You can see how you can integrate all these 10 ways to navigate complexity. On the one hand, complexity is the denigration of consciousness through blame, through fear, through self-violence, through delusion, through anger. We've become normal a lot of the time, normalized these, I don't like to use the word, but I use it right now, the toxic states of mind, and learning to free ourselves into a more beautiful, clear water of consciousness, a more elegant, pure flow of heart, emotional, psychological, existential, spirit presence. Beings of light, being nurtured by our meditation. What does that mean? All I can share is what it means for me. I have a special place in my home here where I do all that I can in my morning ritual to take care of my body, to share in whatever ways I need to in terms of my family, to then walk and mindfully be in the quietude of physical movement, and then it's time to sit in meditation. But I don't put a time on it because I want to consecrate meditation as a sacred action, not a time-oriented discipline, any more than I would on love or marriage or intimacy. Those are sacred expressions of the vocation of being human. I want to anoint them with the highest, most special, beautiful qualities of my life. So practice isn't so much the practice of the sacred. It is a discipline, but it's a reverence for sitting. And why do I do that? over and over again for me over the decades, it's allowed me to hear the more intimate, sacred thoughts within my own soul. The more I relax thought and allow thought to come and go, I have seen over the decades, and maybe you have seen this as well, that the absence of thinking isn't the absence of intelligence. There are other forms of pre-intuitive information that spontaneously come from either the subconscious or the substratum or the intrinsic DNA of God. I don't know the source of my mind other than through my heart and my biology and my brain, but I'm a believer in things larger and deeper and more intimate than physicality alone. I do believe in the spirit. I do believe in the cosmological essence of totality. Call it goddess, call it God, call it Dhamma or Dharma. Intrinsic, innateness, this intelligence that we're embedded. I want to tap in, to feel, to be a part of, to overcome separateness from that existence of spirit. Meditation is the actualization, the recharging, the resensitizing to that level of numismatic intelligence. I call it mindful intelligence. It embraces and intersects with anatomical intelligence, neurological intelligence, conditioned intelligence, environmental intelligence, spiritual and emotional intelligence, mysterious intelligence, God intelligence. Meditation is to occupy, think less, feel more, and allow. So much creativity for me comes through the sitting meditation. I cannot encourage it enough. Discipline your heart as you would meals and bathing and conversation. Say no more about the dedication that we have to our smartless phones that I can't live without. Dedicate a period of your morning. I suggest the morning, only once a day, even for a minute. Plug in and then unplug and feel. Occupy, in-breath, out-breath. In-breath, out-breath, in-breath. Something so wonderful, I know you know this, coming to the end, something so beautiful and wonderful about knowing that you can kiss mortality with the breath of freedom and dignity. It's intrinsic. All of us know that at this moment, we are in an impermanent context called existence, embodied in form. It's so impermanent, it's so obvious that any second there is the collapse of the biological as we know it, and I am no longer speaking and thinking or moving. I no longer fear that. I don't feel fear of discontinuity. I'm not suggesting that you should or shouldn't. I bring it up because what it does for me when I meditate, it allows me to kiss mortality, move through her and him, it, into a finer intelligence that's transcendent but not exclusively different than mortality or form. It includes, but it doesn't denigrate. Feeling, in-breath, out-breath. Okay. All the little worries, the little doubts, the judgments, let them come and let them go. And let pre-intuitive intelligence shine through and feel and to see as a discipline in the day. The same with yoga. Yoga keeps me a little bit more flexible physically. I have a specific routine of what they call, or what we know as asanas, physical movement postures that mindfully support me inhabiting my body on a beautiful felt level of sensation and occupying an authenticity within the asana. Breathing, And it keeps my body nimble and moving and consciously present. So meditation and yoga, point 9, and I will end with the 10th way of navigating complexity. Very poignant. Touch. Touch. Touching self. We talk about being embodied a lot of the time meditatively for myself. I actually get vitamin E oil and I rub it on my arms and my hands and my legs and my chest. And there's something in the simplicity of physical self-touch and the meditative yogic sensations of that unorthodox asana called self-respect. It takes me out of the mindset training of meditation as a development of consciousness alone and allows me to put physical sensations onto myself and feel them, self-touch, and the touch with other, and of course the touch together. Yesterday I was invited, should I wish, which I partook of, from an old ally, sister friend, savant, a massage. And felt the sensations of warmth, of beauty, of love, of sensitivity, of vulnerability. And it so reminded me, I put something up on my Facebook and my Instagram account today about a hand that was from a painting on her wall. And I asked if I could photograph it. And she said yes. And I put that we will save the world, a bold statement, by the power of touch, consciously, lovingly, and fully. And there's something in me right now. I hadn't had that thought in probably close to a year or two or even more. And just from that hour with my friend, it awakened something more beautiful, so innate in me. I've been so physical my whole life, athletically and intimately, romantically, sexually, erotically, meditatively. So mindful, and yet so simple. Physical touch, being touched, touching another, touching oneself. Especially in this time where everything is being masked over. Vaccinated mandates, lockdowns, armies, the militarization of an authoritarian mandate. And these 10 ways are so simple. Human touch. Why aren't our pundits and our leaders and our scientists and our presidents and prime ministers and Dharma teachers and yogis yelling out with all of our heart? All we need to do is beautify human consciousness with therapeutics and supplement and light and D3 and zinc and yoga and meditation and the ocean. Let's drop the fear paradigms. Drop the fear paradigms. May this video go far and wide in simple actions of caring for the well-being of others. Touch. Although we may be in some form of fear around Miss Delta or Mr. Delta and the mutations and who to be vaccinated and who won't, and shedding and all the various things, what will I do? And I can't live another minute without being touched and loved. There's so many ways. I've talked to political prisoners who've lived in isolation. I'll close here. My beloved mentor, U Tin U, the teacher and mentor of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, the former general of the army under a dictator who turned into Burma's Gandhi, and gave up the role of weapons and violence and empowered the beauty of his own state of love as vehicle for transformation against evil, epic totalitarianism. He's a savant. U Tinu, 19 years in prison. I asked him, "Sir, how did you get through the darkest times?" And he said, he grabbed my hands, and in essence, after an hour, a beautiful Dharma hymn, he said, it was touch, Alan, human touch. Although I was alone, I went deep inside and remembered those moments with my wife, looking at her, seeing her, smelling her, listening to her words like poetry, that cognitive, emotional, spiritual, psychological, spiritual touch of intimacy. He said, it's the memory of human warmth that gets you through the darkest times, Alan, when you're imprisoned as a political prisoner. At least it was for me. And it brings up the final point. All of them merge into present time, present intimacy with beauty. Let us come back to each other here within this fear paradigm that's tsunamiing around the world of separation and fear and will I get infected and what should I do and not to touch and not to kiss and mask and not mask. And let's come back to the beauty and the simplicity in our own elegant, wise way. Be wise. But let's seek new pathways of human touch with self, with family, with friends, with the unknown goddess and the God that you hope to meet right now, today. Let's be willing, as it becomes darker, so it seems, let's walk out into the light and remember the radiance of falling in love. Let's take it higher, take it higher. So the 10 ways of navigating complexity. Be mindful, stay embodied, protect your mind, guard your senses, know how to inspire yourself, see beauty, diet, exercise, light, eliminate toxic addictions, create supplements, D3, zinc, C, B, boundaries, quiet, meditation, yoga, and the power of human touch. From my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. And remember that I will do part 2 with my friend Stephen M. Shore on Sunday, 9:30 a.m. here from Hawaii. Please tell your friends to tune in. And we will dive more deeply into the issue of plant medicines, therapeutics, extracts, herbs, the vaccines, shedding, and all the various things to empower conscious revolution and resistance in the face of authoritarian mandates and totalitarianism. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. Have a beautiful day. And thank you from my heart. God willing, see you tomorrow, 9:30, here from Hawaii.